In this demonstration, we're going to talk and learn about the overcast stitch for hand sewing. So I have here two pieces of fabric that are pinned together. All right, and these two pieces, I want to sew them together by hand with an overcast stitch. That would close up the edges rather than a running stitch that has the edges open a little bit, okay? So I do have a needle and thread with a knot at the end of the thread. So to begin the overcast stitch, all right, you do want to start on the inside of one of the sides. All right, so bring your thread through from the inside to the outside of one of the sides. All right, now this stitch is very easy, but as I've mentioned before, in a running stitch, you want your stitch to be uniform so that it looks nice. Now I'm sewing in red thread. If you were going to be sewing this closed, not for a demonstration, but for purposes of using it, then you would want to use orange thread to match this fabric. So then I'm going to go to the opposite side and come straight through. All right, back to the other side. And straight through. Back to the other side. And straight through. You want your stitches to be about 1/8 of an inch apart or less. You want your stitches to be fairly close to the top, but not so far to the top that you don't catch the edge. And you want to sew your entire opening. So you would start from the beginning of your opening and sew all the way to the end of your opening. Now, if you don't make the stitches close enough, you will eventually pop the seam because it'll be too far apart. So you want to make sure that your stitches are close together. Now, when you get to the end of your opening, so for demonstration purposes, we are going to say this is our opening that we sewed closed, okay? What you're going to do is make a lock stitch. So to make a lock stitch on an overcast stitch, you are going to go through from the back again, straight through right where you came out. Take your needle through and most of your thread. You have a loop in your thread. You're going to take that needle, go through that loop in the thread, pull it tight, do that exact same thing 2 more times. The other times that you would do that is if your thread gets short. So if you have about 4 to 5 inches of thread, you want to stop and do a lock stitch, because if your thread gets too short, you don't have enough thread to do a lock stitch. So one more time I need to go through to make that lock stitch. So again, it's a total of 3 times and make sure your loop is not too big, because if it is, you'll get the threads all tangled. When you're finished with that, you would cut it off and your overcast stitch is complete.